Today on What Went Wrong, let's see if we can get canceled. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and a lot of my films can piss people off.
Yeah, well.
Particularly the latest one we did is going to piss a lot of people off in some areas.
Maybe.
Which I fully welcome, because there's nothing in that film that's wrong, historically inaccurate. It's very realistic.
I think that's the problem, is so many people are living outside of the real world anymore. They don't understand that the real world is a lot less accepting to their point of view.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
Which is, to me, it feels like that kid when you were a kid and he had the ball and you would disagree with something and you go, "Oh, well, I'm taking the ball and I'm going home."
Yeah.
And that's what these people are.
I'm going home. Yeah.
Childish, immature, unwilling to have an open discussion.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to have their way, and they will destroy your life, your income, your everything that you are, because they disagree with you.
Yeah.
Whether you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Whether you have the facts on your side or whether it's just your opinion. And it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And these people have no idea about history. Because if they did, everyone that's calling people Nazis would realize it, and trying to get them fired for something they say. "You're a Nazi because you said this. You need to be fired and you need to be out of there." Echoes.
That's
real Nazism.
That's
real
what the
fascism.
Nazis used to do, kids.
Yeah.
I equated it to the French Revolution. For those of you who aren't familiar, the French weren't always the cheese-loving, wine-loving individuals they are now. They were cheese-loving, wine-loving individuals, and they used to slaughter each other wholesale. In fact, it was remember reading that book, A Tale of Two Cities? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Madame Defarge sitting there milling her thing about who's going to die. Because the thing about the French Revolution and talking about, because everyone's going to the guillotine, off with their head, is it became, they even called it the Great Terror in France. Because after, it was one thing to get the king and everyone else and get the heads of state, no pun intended, but then they started doing everybody. Nobody was safe, and you couldn't talk. You couldn't go against Vive la Revolution, because then you'd be accused of being, a monarchist, and you were part of the problem. And then you'd lose your head. You'd quite literally lose your head. And then, of course, we had someone come to power named Napoleon Bonaparte, and and all of Europe for the next 20 years were thrown into what could best be described as the greatest bloodletting until World War II. Bloodletting like you would not believe. And here's the thing. If the people pushing for the cancel culture think that they're not capable of being victim to it, they're sorely mistaken, because here's the thing. Those of us like me, I don't give a I'm so out of tune with most popular culture. I don't give a I'm not really in a position where anyone can cancel me anyway, because my boss would basically, if someone called up and said, "Jeff Price said this about people, you need to fire him," my boss is going to say, "Shut up, sucker," and hang up the phone, because my boss, if you want to say, is, an old drag racer, used to get into fights and people in the pit stop, so he's going to tell you to go off. But the idea that I can disagree with you, or you can disagree with me, or this person can disagree with that person, and then because of that, one of us needs to get fired from our job because we are, I don't know what, a Nazi or whatever, or a socialist. That's dangerous, because if you think that you're going to call up my boss and then someone tomorrow is going to call up your boss, or that you're the next person on the block, or you say something, because here's one thing about the world. The pendulum swings. And the pendulum swings this way, and then the pendulum swings back.
Trump one year, Biden the next.
Biden the next. Who's coming next after this? Because Biden's doing such a good job. At least he started bombing brown people so I could get back to work flying in the Middle East. I love those Democrats. They got to bomb people. And I get paid to move bombs. It's awesome. Not really. I'm just saying that. But the pendulum's going to swing. Okay, and when the pendulum swings back the other direction, and you've established this is how you want the culture to be, well, guess what, kids? It's coming for you. And so you could say, this person's a Nazi, that person, whatever. Well, then when the pendulum swings back, all of a sudden, hey, remember that one time you called me a Nazi and got me fired? Well, guess what? I'm back and you're out. And then what are you going to do? Where's it going to stop? Okay. The French Revolution is a good story. Not that people calling for cancel culture have any education whatsoever. I mean, I hate to say it. No, I don't. I love saying this. The people who are in that world are just the dumbest humans on the planet. Just simply stupid. Everything from Disney, and you used to be the biggest Disney fan, but I just went to Disney World a couple of weeks ago. I'm that place. I'm never that place. They've lost their minds.
That breaks my heart to hear you, of all people, say that about Disney.
I've been at DVC. I've had an annual pass for 25 years or something like that.
No, I mean, 10 years ago, no one could say one bad word about Disney to you.
They were such a good company. You know, they took care of me. They took care of things. I worked for them before, and we were taught, take care of the customer, do this, the customer first. I can tell stories. If you want to make one on customer service, I got stories that Disney taught me. Okay, I'm not customer service. I was in the infantry and the artillery, and I fly cargo planes now. I am not a customer service guy. I'm just like, get the off. Just go off and die. I don't care. But Disney had customer service that you would not believe. And nowadays, I don't understand how a company, I do understand how a company, but I don't understand how a company that prided itself on taking care of the customers and the people and their vast can have an entire culture now where they're blaming the customers for not liking their films, when they're blaming people for the reason things are going so badly for them, when they're calling their customers, the fans of Star Wars, for example, you know, misogynists and racists and sexists and blah, 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 because their movies have been flopping. It says, guys, what are you doing? This whole idea that it's the fault of the people for all this stuff, I don't understand that. And I don't understand how you could have certain people calling for the ouster of certain other people because they disagree politically. Okay? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I do understand it, but I don't. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand that the reason they're doing it is because the people who are calling for it are idiots. They're stupid. You know, they're childlike, asinine, uneducated, ridiculous, self-righteous, self-important dumbasses. Tards of the highest degree. You're going to be bleeping and bleeping and bleeping everything I say. Bleep, bleep, bleep. These bleeping, these bleeping sons of bleeps. Bleep these mother bleepers. But yeah, it's just one of these things where the individuals doing it are the same psychopathic whack jobs that in the 1790s were screaming for people to get their heads cut off. And the problem is...
It's the blacklists of Hollywood.
The blacklist of Hollywood. It's the old communist thing. It's McCarthyism, but now it's McCarthyism on this side. And here's the problem, guys, because McCarthyism didn't go well. There was a couple of years where it went along, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, the McCarthyists, they were the ones out on their ass. And the people calling for this and chasing out communists were the ones who were the ones being chased out and thrown out of town on a rail. They're coming for you, okay? If you're going to call for cancel culture, guess what? They're coming for you. It is an indisputable fact of history that they're coming for you. You can't escape it. The more you call for it, the more you press for it, when all of a sudden that pendulum starts swinging back, and it's going to swing back. It's a fact of life. It's history. It's the way the world works. The planet likes equilibrium, and when you push it too far to one side, it's going to come back. And guess what, kids? They're coming for you. We're coming for you. It's going to happen. Stop it. Because if you don't stop it, it's not going to stop when it comes on your door. And you're the one being cast out into the world. And you're the one being removed and run out of town. You're the one on the breadline because you can't get a job. Because you were the psychopath calling for off with their head, and the French Revolution. And then when the emperor comes along and throws everything into war, you're the one that's going to pay the price.
Yeah, and it's not just an ignorance of history and not understanding what came before to be able to avoid it. These people know that I believe they know that they are stupid, because I've had conversations with people. And it always ends with agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Because they realize that they can't argue anymore.
No.
That they have no point, and it's all emotional at that point.
Yeah.
I was in debate with somebody about the Mandalorian chick, Gina Carano, and so, well, she's promoting false history. And I was like, well, because I hadn't read the text. I was like, what, is that what she said? And I went on. I was like, she didn't say anything about that in here. She's talking about neighbors. Well, she needed to, they said, well, they need to redefine and be more clear about what they're saying about when she says the neighbors were beating up the Jews. That makes it sound like the Jews are beating up the Jews. So no, the neighbors. Now you're putting words into her mouth to fit your narrative.
We're not having the conversation you want to have. I have that all the time with people. We're not going to have the conversation you want to have. This is the conversation we're having. If you don't want to be a part of it, go ahead and admit defeat and get out the exit stage left.
But they won't take that and turn it on themselves. I mean,
they can't.
One of my cognitive dissonance is one of the biggest things that I brought out of the master's degree and understand what that was, where it came from. And I, every day of my life, am asking myself, when I think something, when I believe something, am I missing something?
Yeah.
Why do I believe this way? And is cognitive dissonance hitting me? And there are times where I catch myself. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with trying to counter it and debate yourself and go, well, there's this, and try to find that result.
You should spend that time checking, rechecking, thinking. The problem I have discovered with your typical liberal progressive is they've built their self-image around this idea of what they believe the world to be, okay? And the problem is when they build their entire self-image around that, even if you give them indisputable facts that shows that they're wrong, they cannot accept it, because to do so would be to violate their entire self-image.
So they have to walk away with
they have to agree to disagree, because otherwise they would have to say, my entire thinking is completely wrong. And I hate to say it, I love saying this. Your typical progressive that I've discovered does not have that ability, does not have the ability for introspection, does not have the self-discipline, does not have the kind of, for lack of a better word, intelligence to step forward and use critical thinking for their own ideas. I've been wrong on any number of things, okay? I've been wrong about what I thought was going to happen with the trends in the world. I've been wrong about what I thought was going to happen with certain things. I don't mind saying that I'm wrong, okay? But I've built my self-image around introspection and trying to decipher what I think is correct, but that doesn't form my self-image. For so many progressives, for so many liberals, for whatever else, this is who they are. They're this before they're anything else, okay? And the problem is, when things start changing, when all of a sudden they realize that they're not thinking in a way that is accurate, it absolutely sends them into a tailspin. They have that, what's that called? When you have like a mental breakdown or whatever it is, when you have that. That's what they have going on.
Okay. Then they can retreat to their echo chamber.
Yeah, they go to their echo chamber, talk to all their friends. No, and then they come back out in the real world, and then boom, they get hit with it again. And that's why they can't do anything except shout louder what they think, even though it's not right. Yeah. Okay, that's all they have. Okay, I don't mind someone being liberal and disagreeing with me. I don't mind someone being conservative and disagreeing with me, because I'm not. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm conservative, not Republican. I'm not Democrat, but I'm conservative. Okay, but I like to think for myself because I've seen both sides. I mean, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of rough because I don't particularly like Democratic presidents because they do stupid shit, but then I like Democratic presidents because I make lots of money. I don't mind that. I made so much money on President Obama, so much money because of stuff he was doing. Even though it was horrible the things he was doing, but I was making the cash, so it's okay. But people come up with these ideas where this is the way the world is, and it's not. Because they live in their little worlds. That's why it's typically like kids who are under 20 or under 25, the college age kids, because they haven't done anything. They haven't been anywhere.
It's also a little bit of that safety first is that because they've been coddled and had that safety first mentality. Right. They don't know what the real world is like because they're in the little safe little padded rooms all the time.
One of the things a buddy of mine, he's an instructor for for a big corporation, and he's finding that a lot of these not millennials. What's after the millennials? The ones who are coming up, they're they're coming out of college in their early 20s, is when he goes to these training classes, and usually they're trained to be managers, and he has had so many of them tell him, is like, for lack of a better word, it, just everything. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, nothing matters. I was told this. I was told that. You know, I have all these trophies at home, and none of them matter. And all of a sudden, I'm in the real world, and no one cares. The only thing that matters is making money. He's like, I thought I'd be this. I thought I'd be that. And he's like, yeah, that's the real world. He's like, yeah, well, no one told us that. And they're mad, and they're angry because they've heard this. You can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can do anything. Truth is, no, you really can't. You're not going to be able to do that. Guess what, sweetheart? You're never going to be an astronaut.
You're too stupid.
You're too stupid to be an astronaut. You're not going to have the Mercedes. You're not going to have the big house. You're not going to have any of that stuff. And a lot of these kids are coming out and all of a sudden realizing that. And all of a sudden, everything they've built their little life around, that this is not fair and free college and blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, the taxes hit. I made $30,000 last year, but they took $10,000 of it away. Yeah, that's called taxes, sweetheart. That's so the poor people can have money too. But I weren't earned that money. Yeah, you did. And you're going to give it back now. And all of a sudden, all the stuff they've believed about free college and free health care and blah, 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 it doesn't exist. It's never going to exist. Ever. And they're just, it throws their entire world for a loop. That's fine. Okay. But these are the same people. These same people. Okay. And I always, say that the politicians and the liberals, the Democrats, are the ones feeding into this idealism, which idealism is great. But as your last movie shows, idealism can get you in trouble. You need to have idealistic concepts with reality-based actions.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have the idealized world, and you can have the reality, and you can figure out a way to get through it. I've done pretty well for myself, being able to have my realization that the world sucks. But here's how I make the world suck less.
Yeah, that's the point, is to make it
for
suck
me,
as less as
right.
you can for
it sucks
yourself.
less for me. I try to take care of me and my family and myself. And so the world is a complete hole. Okay, has been a complete hole since it was created. Well, not since it was created, until Adam and Eve.
Everything in the world wants you dead.
Yeah, since Adam and Eve it up. Yeah, it was one of the funny stories. I was talking with an Australian buddy of mine flying around one time, and he was like, yeah, Texas. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, everything kills you. I was like, you're from Australia. He was like, I didn't say America, just Texas. That place. You have a spider this big, it'll kill you. At least our spiders are this big.
You can see him coming.
You can see him coming. You can hear it crunching branches and stuff. Not yours, but this big. Texas. And I'm like, that's awesome. But yeah, everything's trying to kill you. Just a totally aside. Sorry about that. My Australian accent was terrible. If he was Scottish, it'd be much better. But Scots don't have spiders like that. But yeah, it's one of the funniest things is his realization that everything in Texas wants to kill you. But everything wants to kill you. The air wants to kill you. The people wearing masks want to kill you. You know, the cars want to kill you. The alcohol wants to kill you. The airplanes are trying to kill you. Everything's trying to kill you. You know, the world sucks. The world has sucked since Adam and Eve f***ed up everybody else. Okay. Congratulations. That's a realization you need to have. There's no such thing as free anything, because nothing ever comes for free. Okay. Animals got to die. Plants got to get picked. Clothes got to get made. Houses got to get built. And then people aren't doing it out of the kindness of their heart. I don't frickin' fly airplanes because I'm nice about it. Okay. I get paid. So you have to understand that the world sucks, and your job is to make it suck less. But don't think that it's someone else's responsibility to make the world suck less for you. That's not how this works. Those people are the ones calling for this person to be canceled because he said something bad. He did this, and I don't like what he said.
But most of that canceling comes from not wanting to hear the other, not wanting to hear that you're wrong.
Right.
Not wanting to hear.
Because it's their little microcosm,
Yeah.
and if you tell them they're wrong, it blows their brains.
Even when I'm talking with friends, I love debating and arguing. And I still need to get back on that chain, because I've got one with Denise. I think you're on about what I was making. I made that joke about when all the power was out. You know, it's dark and it's dark,
Oh,
cold,
yeah,
and
yeah.
alone. It's supposed to be what death is like. And she brought out this definition of alone.
Yeah.
So we started going back
That's a
and
good one.
forth of this, and we calling, and I think it ended with me calling semantics, and then she had a, and I've got this full page rebuttal that I keep wanting to go back to.
You better be careful because you're tangled with fire with that one. She's a smart person I know.
But that's great though. Is that sharpens my my thinking skills.
Well,
and like she had three good points. I'm going to be conceding to one of the three arguments, but I'm going to spit out another against the other two.
Yeah.
And I wait for her response.
Yeah.
Then when she comes back, then I go, and I think I've got her on one of them.
Maybe.
But it's that argument, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Because it's both educational.
Yeah.
And it sharpens your critical thinking skills, and it makes you have to analyze yourself. I can't remember what point she made, but it was like, yeah, she got me. Okay, I'll concede to that one.
Right.
But here are my counterpoints to your other two.
Right.
And eventually, we will get it whittled down if we continue to debate and continue to argue.
Right.
What happens? We both discover a truth.
Yeah.
As long as we don't say, "All right, let's agree to disagree."
No, you can't.
Then neither one of us learns anything.
One of the things I've always talked about is, and Denise actually talked about this, about being uncomfortable. Okay, because heroes, they learn to be uncomfortable. One of the greatest things I learned in the military, other than to be able to eat anything, is to be able to be uncomfortable. We had a phrase we used to use called "embrace the suck," which basically meant, yep, it's raining. Yep, it's cold. Yes, I have icicles hanging from my helmet. Yes, I am miserable. Let's do this. Embrace the suck, meaning I am able to be uncomfortable in what's going on and still persevere and do great. Flight school, horribly uncomfortable. My brain hurt all the time. Oh my God, the amount of stuff I had to learn. The concept of drinking through a fire hose. Just uncomfortable, just pounding you with this information. And you have to do it. Tests every Thursday, and you better get it right or boom, they bounce you. I mean, it was awful. Being able to be in a situation where things are not hunky-dory, where I'm not okay with certain things, but I'm okay with not being okay. The generations coming after us have never had to face a kind of all-encompassing hardship. She talked about the World War II, and before that it was the Depression. And since then it's been other things that have come along. And things that are uncomfortable and hard and terrible. September 11th was a big thing for a lot of people because they'd never really felt in danger before. And I think when you put people in danger, actual no you're going to die danger, it changes your perception on things. Because I know all of a sudden I was like, wow, I could have died just now. And then as it happened again later on, I recognized I could die if I don't stop doing what I'm doing or if I need to do something different. And then I became okay, not with almost getting killed, but I mean okay with the concept of things had to be uncomfortable. Okay, people need to learn how to deal with the discomfort of disagreeing with whoever you're disagreeing, and part of that is discussion. Part of that is having the conversations, debating, introspection. The way I've always defined it is the stones of adversity will sharpen the blades of knowledge. Because the way you make a knife sharper is you grind it on a stone, and you grind it and you pound it and you damage it in a certain way to make it sharper. You take off pieces of metal or you hone pieces of metal. The way I became sharp was study and introspection and learning and practicing and failing. My God, I failed. I don't know how many times the stuff I was doing. Okay, I didn't do well a lot, but I was constantly improving. And the next time, as the joke was, next time I screwed up something different. This time, I got that right, but now you f***ed this up. Oh, then you got that right now, but you f***ed this up now. But the point I was always making was, and one of my instructors actually said, Jeff, you keep f***ing up the wrong thing, or you keep f***ing up different things, which is good. And at the end of the day, I passed. And I went on to the airlines, and I've done very well for myself because I wasn't afraid to fail. I am more afraid of... For me, failure doesn't mean not making the standard. For me, failure means I don't try. Mm-hmm. If I don't try to understand what you're saying, if I just say, we can agree to disagree. If we can agree to disagree, I have failed in my test. I have failed not to make a standard, but I failed to try. Because if I'm going to debate you, if I'm going to debate him, if I'm going to learn about this, if I'm going to listen to what someone says to me and learn from it, I have to listen to what they say, even if I disagree.
I just made one of the best films of my life. And I couldn't have made that film without making those bad decisions
Right.
and failing in
Right.
those things. Because there were moments on the set of Lady Lawman where I was like, well, I could just do this. I'm just going to... And then I flash back to 20 years ago to being on the set of Last Blood. You know, and it's because I failed.
Yes.
And I saw how it ended.
Yes.
Now I go, okay, let's do this the right way.
So many people are scared of failure. They're so frightened of failure that they are not actively capable of success. But when I say to them, historically speaking, the cancel culture idea is going to come bite you in the ass. Well, no, it's not. And then my thing is, well, tell me why not. Well, because I was like, I can show you from history, from Europe in the 1930s, Asia in the 1960s and 70s, the Middle East in the 1920s. If you want to keep going back to France in the late 1700s, you want me to keep going? We'll keep going. Roman Empire back. I mean, I can show you history after time after time after time after time. When you've had the idea that we're going to cancel because we agree to disagree. History's on my side. Okay? History is on my side. What have you got? And if all you're going to say is we just agree to disagree, that's not okay. I agree. You've conceded your argument. You don't know how. You have nothing else to say. So be gone, you mindless child. Okay, that's harsh, but I love being harsh. I don't care what your feelings are. History doesn't care about your feelings. Math doesn't care about your feelings. Science doesn't care about your feelings. Okay, history is what history is. Things have happened, and nothing that's happening now hasn't ever happened before. It's a little different. Things haven't changed, but the idea that the mob, and it is a mob, is going after people because they've said things they don't agree with. Okay, first of all, the idea that a company can restrict someone's speech is acceptable in so much as you have to toe the company line, and I understand that. Okay, you can't have people at Boeing telling everyone to stop flying on Boeing airplanes because you're all going to die horribly. No, don't do that. Gina Carano did what she did, said what she said, disagree. But what else is she doing? What else has she done for the culture, for women in MMA? She was one of the pioneers of females in mixed martial arts.
Because it has nothing to do with being right or fighting on the right side or social justice.
No.
It's about their own feeling of importance.
Yeah.
And needing to feel like they're doing something that they're the right ones and that they're on the right side and they're fighting this great battle and they're one of the soldiers going out there and doing that when they're not.
They're not. Bill Maher, I don't like Bill Maher. He's a douchebag. He says some that's just totally up. However, he is on the right, I think, when it comes to this. And he's actually said something like that. We could look it up, or whoever can look it up, where he talks about these people sitting at home by their computers, and they just sit there and go, "Oh, look at me, I'm so good. I did something." Like he says the same thing. They don't do anything. They sit at home. They lead meaningless, pointless existences, and the only thing they have is to tear down people on the ziggurat.
And they call and they call war against somebody like the governor Abbott, who's letting people go out and start living their lives again.
Yeah.
Declaring war on them because he's giving them permission to go out of their house.
Yeah.
Come out here into the real world, but they're too cowardly to step foot out into the real world and get on with their lives.
I've always thought of most liberals and liberals and progressives to be cowards at heart. Yeah.
Because they need somebody else.
They need someone else to tell them what to do.
They won't go down there and donate to the Red Cross or donate to the Salvation Army. So they got to create and force the government to come and get the rich people to get all their money and throw it in there.
It's one of the things. Certain places I've been, certain things I've done. One of the things Mr. Rogers said one time was like, whenever something bad happens, look for the helpers. Look for the helpers. It's one of the great things he's ever said to kids about when something bad happens. And the problem is, this is going to sound terrible, but this is anecdotal for me. I have yet to see the helpers be on that side.
Yeah.
I have yet to see the people that are doing be the ones that are calling for the removal of this or for cancel for that or he's a Nazi, he's a socialist. It's not my conservative friends that call me a Nazi for disagreeing with them. It's not my conservative friends who are the ones saying we agree to disagree. It's not my conservative friends who will say whataboutism or Nazi or sexist or misogynist to stifle conversation. And I've warned these same people, look, the only thing stopping conflict is conversation. One of the things you and I talked about, we talked about all the things we talked about. One of the things I've said before was, if when I was doing the contract stuff, when I was doing the military, if you've called me, we're done talking. If I show up on your doorstep, the conversation's over, and you now have to pay. I'm gonna make you pay in blood. Okay. When guys like me showed up, we're done talking. It's now time to hurt. If you are conversing, I'm not going to show up at your house. I wasn't going to show up on your doorstep. I wasn't going to show up in your country. I wasn't going to show up dropping bombs on you. That's not my job. I'm not a conversationalist when it comes to that part of the world, okay? As long as you're talking, the violence hasn't happened. However, if you stifle the conversation, violence is all that's left.
And that's what I've brought that up in class before about the importance of the First and Second Amendment, and then why it's the first, because that's the most important.
That is the most important.
Because you have to have the ability to talk. Because there's two ways you can compel somebody to see your side and do what you want them to do.
Right.
First is talk, communication, conversation, debate,
right.
Have an argument.
Yes.
When that breaks down, when that fails, when you no longer allow that conversation, which is what the cancel culture is doing.
Yeah.
What is the only other method to compel someone to do it?
Force and violence.
And we have a Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So if you are a part of cancel culture and you're out there trying to get people to cancel your favorite show, your favorite star, or you're going to come after people like us who say, oh, you did something that's historically accurate and we're trying to erase that part of history, they're coming for you next.